Well, I got back to MCRD. They set me up for another special court-martial, which was my third special court-martial. And I still have my private first-class rank. Well, the thing is, I didn't feel it was right to go to Canada and just kind of leave it. Then I'd never be able to come back to this country again. And they might someday try to come up there and get me anyway, or the Canadian government idea might change. And anyway, I didn't want to leave those things, something left undone, unsaid, just like a blank space and not finished up project. And I was still of a mind that I didn't want to be a Marine and didn't want any part to do with what they were up there, what they were going with, and how they were behaving. And the war in Vietnam was, I mean, really, really cranking bad. In the brig, I got to meet a lot of people that were, you know, basically had decided not to cooperate over there, or had flunked out for some reason or other. And so some of them were real bad guys, but we were all kind of like a band, and we got along together. The way it worked out, the colonel that had this vendetta against me that I spoke out to, he was then relieved of duty, transferred, and they put somebody else in, and this new guy was, new colonel was really all fired up, and he decided that he would cancel my special court-martial and had serious desertion charges on me. And so he was going to set me up for a general court-martial, not try to send me back to Vietnam or put me back into duty. General court-martial, it takes 5 officers, and a general has to be sitting on the board, which is basically the company. Our base commander was a general, so it had to be the base commander and a couple of colonels and, you know, some high-ranking military Marine officials. And well, anyway, long story short, I decided to that I was going to run away again, because general court-martial would mean many, many years in prison, and it just wasn't working out, you know, at all to anybody's advantage for me to spend years and years in prison, which is how I saw it. And so I decided to escape, and what I did was I got a claim to be sick and had to get taken to the hospital with guards, but then I managed to slip away from the guards, and that's a long story about how that happened. And then once again, I had contacts in the underground with the anti-war movement, and I went and talked with them and ended up getting spirited away to a different faraway place. That's another long story. But get spirited away to that place, and then I stayed about a year, and then I was told to go back, and I went back again. I went back to the brig, and they set me up for, let's see, I'll show the rest of my village here. Let's see, here we go. A guy on a buffalo. So these people didn't know why we were there either. Okay, so I ended up turning myself in again, and I'd been gone so long that all my paperwork was gone. They had to ship off for it. They didn't know who I was or where I'd been. I got set up for another general court-martial. So I'd been set up for 3 specials, and this was my second general court-martial now. And I was looking at many, many hard years of labor in Leavenworth. That's what my public defender told me. I'd been really, I've been really active while I was in the brig and caused a lot of trouble. I was active out as an anti-war protester and marches and stuff like that, and caught up with the FBI, caught up with me a couple of times, and I mean, there's a lot of things that happened in there, basically as protesting the war. But right about that time, I let's see. Oh well, in Ohio, there were students protesting at Kent, I think it was, Kent University, and anyway, the National Guard was called out on them, and they were going to fire rubber bullets at them, but it turns out they had live rounds, or some of them did, and 5 students were killed. And the public outrage was outrageous then. I mean, people were really, everybody, the silent majority, they called them. People who always went along with whatever the government wanted, and then there was suddenly this great uproar. All the funding was cut for the war, and they, Marines, and U.S. government and soldiers had to run with their tails tucked between their legs. I mean, they had to run and get out of there, escape from Vietnam, and we just abandoned the whole thing. Left all the weapons and tanks and everything else there. We just got away. They began to downsize the Marine Corps, and all this was happening very fast. So the Marine Corps, they came to me and said, if you'll sign this paper, we'll give you an undesirable discharge and set you free, let you go. I signed the paper, and I'd been like, a couple of months, 3 months maybe, locked up in the brig again, which was not so bad. I'd gotten used to it. All my friends were in there, and they gave me undesirable discharge. They paid me all my back pay for 3 years. I mean, I got a chunk of money. I was still private first class. I was retired from the Marine Corps, private first class. They gave me a plane ticket back home to the place where I'd enlisted, which was Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I was studying to be an aviation and airframe and power plant mechanic. And so they basically took me to the edge of the gate and threw my discharge papers down on the ground across the line outside the gate. And I picked them up and all my money and everything else, and I went and got on the plane, and I was in a total state of shock all the way back. I mean, just could hardly believe it. It was like, boom, there it was. I went through all of that, and now I was free and going back. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot of good things. And I had a lot of bitterness toward the government because of the things that I found that they were doing. And kind of made up my mind I wanted to make a better life for us, a better place. And anyway, that's the end of my Marine Corps story. There's a lot of things that happened in between there, but it's not all related to the Marine Corps. So I'm going to close this one out, but I've got other ones coming.